We're now being joined by Laura McDonald as well as Dr. Christy Lane. Both of you, thank you so much for your time here on LiveNOW from Fox. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
So we'll start with this. What have you seen in terms of the challenges surrounding fertility treatments with the cost and anything else that people are experiencing right now that is a concern to you?
Yeah, well, Ryan, 1 in 6 people are going to need fertility treatment going forward. In fact, it has become one of the largest expenses that young adults are facing after college, saving for college education and a down payment on a home. And so a very real expense. And when we built FLORA Fertility 3 years ago, we were looking at how do we address this coverage gap, because right now benefits are typically only offered by large employers. And so 60 to 80% of people have no coverage. And that's really where we stepped in to build the first private model that ensures you can own your reproductive health outcomes and have the ability to pay for treatment if you need it.
And so how does it work? Can you explain that real quick?
Yeah, so FLORA is the first individually owned fertility insurance. So women who are looking to proactively plan for potentially having a family down the road, they land on our website and they go through a few questions, and then we're able to cover them for future fertility treatment down the road.
Hey, and so talk about some of the cost that's been associated with this. You mentioned how it's up there with owning a home and some of the other biggest expenses people have when they're trying to start a family. What resources do they have right now? What strategies can they use to either save up or find ways to afford this?
I mean, I can start there as someone having personally gone through infertility and having paid over $50,000 out of pocket for this. We know that the costs are going up. The average round of IVF or in vitro fertilization costs in that $20,000 to $25,000 range. And right now what you're seeing is women and families are seeking loans, financing at high interest and high cost. And there are some group plans available through employers today, but again, those are getting increasingly more expensive, and really only people who work at Fortune 500 companies have access to those.
And so what else can be done here? When I was on Capitol Hill, we covered a bill that was being proposed. I don't think it really went anywhere, but it was essentially a way to give lower income Americans a tax credit if they wanted to pursue IVF. But it doesn't seem like there's many other avenues right now. And you just mentioned right there, most of the employers that provide some type of coverage for this, it's less than 50%. A lot of them are Fortune 500 companies, so it's not really included in most employers.
The way to make it more affordable and accessible is to really look at it proactively, and that's what we've done through a true insurance model. So we are an entirely reinsurance backed, and what that means is you apply for a policy at an earlier age, and that provides you with coverage for treatment if you need it down the road. And so one example, for example, I have 3 young adult daughters, and they're between the ages of 20 to 18 and 20. I would buy this for my daughters because I can pay $15 a month, and if they ever need treatment down the road, I've got them covered. It has become that huge expense, as I referenced, that young adults are facing, but that parents are also helping to offset, because it's very meaningful to our lives, and we want to pay for it. We want to build a family, but we want to do it on our own terms and timeline. And that's really what we're trying to do with FLORA.
And you mentioned, both of you have now kind of personal examples and some different personal experiences that you've had. Was there maybe a breaking point for you that said that we need to start FLORA, we need to start taking action because the status quo right now is just simply not good enough?
I mean, absolutely. We have different stories. Mine was probably 15 years ago when I was undergoing my first treatment for my first daughter. Thankfully, I now have 3 beautiful children. But at the time that I was going through it, I was struck by the fact that there was no financial protection. There was no way to proactively plan for this. And even then, there weren't really loans and financing available. And so at that time, I was also struck by the fact that there was no community and education. People just weren't talking about infertility, even though 1 in 6 were going through it, people weren't talking about it. And so I think for me personally, it progressed to the point where people are now starting to talk about it. You know, Laura has older daughters. My children are a little bit younger, but even my daughters are talking about this with their friends. And so I think was struck by the fact that we need solutions today. And the other factor is that families are having babies later in life. The average age now is over 30, when previously it was always under 30. And so just paths to motherhood are different. Women are focusing more on career and being able to proactively plan for eventually having a family on their own timeline. And that's really what was a driving factor behind building FLORA.
Go ahead, Laura.
I just want to add to that. When we were building FLORA, we did a lot of research with global women's health apps to understand how were young women thinking about fertility. And we've seen a real shift. So one of the big things is that it's the first generation coming into adulthood in masses who were born because their parents went through fertility treatment. So awareness is at an all-time high. And on top of that, and my daughters are evidence of this, 72% of young women, the number is shocking. They are thinking about fertility and have even some degree of anxiety around it by the age of 23. So it is very much a hot topic that they're looking to address very proactively. And that's why you're seeing such an increase in egg freezing, for example. But egg freezing to date has been seen as the only way to ensure your future fertility. And we're putting a spin on it and go, why don't you actually insure it with a true insurance policy that essentially you're paying pennies on the dollar now, so that if you need treatment down the road, you have robust coverage and you can get that treatment without debt or delay.
And it's interesting you bring that up too, because like you mentioned, the demand is going up for this as people are having families later in lives, as women are making more money earlier in their careers, and it becomes a little more challenging to start a family earlier, and people are just getting married later as well. So this is not going away anytime soon. If anything, it's only going to get increased more and more in terms of the demand.
Yep. Absolutely. We seeing it. It's driven by primarily factors of just changes in life paths, right? Like the modern woman, if you will, is focusing, as mentioned, more on career and education, but also on just wanting to have agency, ownership of their journey and of the timeline to starting a family. And so all of these factors are converging on the fact that we need solutions now to enable women to proactively plan for this, and families to proactively plan for the potential that they might need treatment down the road, associated with, as we talked about earlier, the increased costs that we're seeing over time with treatment.
And how do you feel the conversation is evolving surrounding this? There is a lot more talk of this than there has ever been before. And do you think that it's taking positive steps, or is there still more to do here?
I think we're taking very positive steps in that we're having the conversation. It is becoming more normalized. We're seeing decreases in the cost of medication, for example. That said, we need even more. It is still not accessible to the vast majority of the population. And that's why solutions like FLORA and others we're a venture-backed company. We're seeing investors putting their dollars towards this. The World Health Organization actually labeled infertility a global health crisis in need of new mechanisms of funding. And so that's where we're really seeing companies like us and others stepping in to make sure that it becomes that much more affordable and accessible for everyone.
Final word, anything both of you would like to add?
I would just say to add to that last point around conversation, you're seeing people talk about this earlier and more openly, and you're seeing celebrities coming out and talking about this, people in government coming out and talking about their journeys. And I think that really helps reduce the stigma around infertility, frankly, and the fact that it's just something that happens to 1 in 6 people. It's a medical issue, but it's also something that requires potential funding and planning. And so that we're really excited that there is more of a community being built around infertility and around financial planning for it.
Laura?
Echo what Christy said there. We need more conversations. We need more accessibility. We need more affordability. And for us, we see the big shift in both individuals being being able to proactively plan for this, and also employers. With models like this, we can work with employers of all sizes to offer fertility benefits in a way that hasn't been done before. And so just changing the landscape and how we access care.
Hey, to follow up on that real quick, what are your conversations like with employers surrounding this? Are more of them becoming open to it? Are they interested in doing so? What are those conversations like?
I'll start on that. One thing that we've noticed is that you've had some group models that emerged over the past, say, 5 years ago. Incredible, they've been great for companies. That's really again catered to the Fortune 500 companies, but they've opened up demand for fertility benefits. The challenge with group models is they're quite expensive to implement. And if an employee leaves the company, they can't take it with them. So a model like FLORA steps in as a voluntary benefit, super affordable. If an employee suffers job loss, they take it with them. It's portable. And when we look at Gen Z having 12 plus jobs over their career, they need something that is going to move with them wherever they are, wherever life takes them. It's in their name and it stays with them if they ever need access to care.
One quick thing to add to that, we are seeing demand from employers of all sizes. So it was mentioned earlier that existing coverage primarily is aimed at Fortune 500 companies because those are the companies that can afford to pay for this. But the demand is coming from Gen Z, gig workers. As mentioned, people are changing jobs and they're not having access to that. So we're seeing demand from small businesses, medium businesses, up to jumbo businesses that have over 1 million employees. The issue has been that while the demand is going up, the ability for the employers to cover the cost of this has also gone up. And so we're seeing employers of all sizes coming to us and saying, look, this is a lot more affordable. It's making it accessible for us to offer. And also our employees are asking for it.
All right. Laura McDonald and Dr. Christy Lane, we thank you so much. A very important issue, definitely one we want to stay on top of, and you're welcome to come back and talk with us about it anytime. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Ryan.